Good evening. Sri Das, DG DGH, Madam Susma Rawat, Director Exploration ONGC, Professor Dr. Sain, Director Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, Dr. Balian, one of the stalwarts of oil and gas sector, Mr. Ashok Verma, another stalwarts, and off the dais, I see lots of leaders, former directors, my colleague in the board of Oil India, Director Operation, industry leaders, and delegates and audience. You feel humbled when you want to talk about E&P in front of such a luminaries, where we have people having more than 40 plus years of experience individually, and in the room probably it will be touching 1,000 years. But then I would like to kind of have a perspective. First, we will share a couple of initiatives that we are taking in Oil India Limited, and then we will, for the purpose of conclave, for the 2 days of deliberation, I would like to share my thoughts. We both, ONGC and Oil India, as Director Exploration ONGC has already highlighted, is actually working on a collaborative mode in order to enhance production, but before that, to ensure some big discoveries. We have been having discoveries in recent past, but those are all small, which is not enough to offset the 85% import dependency, or even that fluctuates depending on the demand. Sometimes it even reaches 88%. But the best part, and then the icing on the cake, is the ongoing reforms that is being doled out or rolled out by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas under the aegis of DGH. I must take this opportunity to compliment DG DGH and his entire team and MOPNG for those path-breaking reforms of encouraging we E&P players to invest, experiment, and fail. Because this is one subject, this is one domain expertise which I strongly feel is not available anywhere else, where it is extremely difficult to take the fourth well decision. Having not been successful, I won't say it's failure, having not been successful the third well. Again, we also struggle to take a decision of 11th well exploratory, having not been successful in the first 1 to 10. And when it goes to 22nd, believe me, we sweat it out. But still, we have those tenacity and the uncanny ability of a third eye to believe on our interpretative and inference skills to identify those locations and pursue it relentlessly to strike hydrocarbon even after 30th of not so successful wells. Still, we have miles to go. If we do such comparisons in other parts of the globe, the quantum of exploration that has happened in last 30-40 years, I strongly believe rather we have miles to go. Now, while these things were happening, DGH and MOPNG brought out this nice concept of unlocking the no-go zone, creating an avenue for ONGC, Oil India, and all other such stakeholders, 1 million square kilometer to be investigated, to be explored. And OLP 9 is 0.2 million that is now available. So far, I must compliment ONGC in terms of developing the indigenization of offshore exploration, but now the target is deep and ultra-deep exploration. And in Oil India, we have also started taking a leap of faith by having today about 60,000 square kilometer of exploration acreage that we need to pursue. And I must share with the august audience here that the API is done. We have identified prospective locations, and we are also now going ahead with the bidding process for inviting bidders to come to the Indian source and help India to scale the unsurmountable exploration target. Now, while we talk about the E&P operators of India, since I have my colleagues from the service providers in the august audience, I must also compliment them, but then I would urge them to be more risk taker and to be able to supplement the efforts of our ONGC and Oil India, geologists, geophysicists, geoscientists, and drilling engineers. There is a huge gap in terms of competency and capacity building that we would encounter as we are marching ahead in our exploration effort. So training for our geologists and geophysicists and drilling engineers will be a need in terms of deep and ultra deep exploration campaign. So recently we also had an opportunity of creating such an ecosystem for our younger colleagues, where I strongly feel, and I would actually request all the stalwarts and industry leaders who are here to contribute and mentor the respective organizations or irrespective of organizations across the organizations, the younger talents that would actually be the future leaders. And as CMT Oil India, I would invite all of you to participate in this effort of Oil India, and I'm sure the same will be ONGC. Now, while we talk about the reforms of Category 2 and Category 3 basins not having any revenue sharing and encouraging the operators to invest more and take risk, we also need to be cognizant of being cost competitiveness. Otherwise, with the price bracket that is available, we would be very, very aggressive, and you can't ask any better ecosystem as we speak today. While the whole world is talking about transition, to us, transition is not just a snap, it is a process, it's a work in progress, and for India's story, it is minimum 3 decades. One more analysis that tells me that, interestingly, while ONGC and Oil India together, we have a much better R by P ratio in comparison to the world majors. The story doesn't stop there. The percentage of exploration spend with respect to the capex of both ONGC and Oil India together is much higher than any peer across the globe. And that tells us the India story. Because to me, it is in India we are actually pursuing exploration and production efforts. It calls for huge capital investment, and while we do that, we are actually concurrently looking at some of the best practices of enhanced oil recovery and such interventions. In Oil India Limited, we have been successful in using cyclic steam stimulation for one of our field in Jaisalmer. We have been pursuing CO2 capture and EOR in the main producing area of Assam Self. And I'm sure the Assam-Arakan fold belt will also be available for both ONGC and Oil India Limited to take up exploration very soon. Now, while we talk about E&P, one capacity that we all have is the best way how do we also tackle the alternative energy portfolio. Now, the alternative energy portfolio primarily entailing the subsurface studies, be it geothermal or carbon dioxide sequestration. Now, the question that I would like to leave behind for the deliberation purpose, what exactly we mean CO2 sequestration per se, whether it is deep aquifer in mainland India or it is deep saline aquifer below the depleted reservoirs, or we still have miles to go before we announce or let go our reservoirs as depleted reservoirs. Simultaneously, do we also need to consider the seismically active zones for the purpose of CO2 sequestration or not? Or even the highly dense population that our country is having, are we still talking about onshore CO2 sequestration or only offshore opportunities? Now, if it is offshore opportunities, how do we make it cost competitiveness? Are we having miles to go before really entering into the CO2 sequestration initiatives? Having said that, in Oil India Limited, pursuant to the directive of MoPNG and DGH, we are carrying out extensive airborne geophysics, not only for the northeastern part of the country, but also those uncharted territories where even now we have not reached out. The upper reaches of Himalaya in Himachal Pradesh, the Bastar Craton or Jagdalpur area, and then the Kaveri Basin. Similarly, as we all know, ONGC is currently carrying out detailed NSP, and Oil India and ONGC is again going to carry out National Seismic Program for the EEZ area. And in addition to that, as Oil India's exploration program, we are rolling out about 70 plus 70 exploratory plus development wells for the next 2 years. And one of the very flagship initiative, and I'm sure we will have more to talk about it as time will turn out, and a carpet 3D seismic survey where we intend to target the Eocene pay zones at a depth of about 6,000 to 8,000 meter in the Assam Self area, covering about 3,500 square kilometer. The whole intent of sharing these targets is just to enthuse the other stakeholders who are actually going to be the key partners to ONGC and Oil India Limited to join hands and render those services, because if it is, I'm not going that we are going to meet all the import substitution purpose through E&P, but whatever delta that by virtue of these new discoveries we can contribute, we will do a statesman's job and contribute to the country's economy. And first, then, before I conclude, I must thank the organizers for organizing this conclave, which is very timely. And if we don't do it today with the ecosystem that is made available by the path-breaking reforms of carving out your own block, collaborations and getting originators benefit, no mandatory commitment, you can't ask anything better than this. I'm sure we will all listen to the DGH about the future of the reforms and the ongoing reforms. And before I must compliment all the organizing committee members to organize such events, and we would look forward to more such events. Thank you very much.